Welcome back to the CNR Podcast, episode 83. And I can't believe we're already going this far, and we're back in the part of the season where the trade rumors are back, you guys. The trade rumors are back. But with that being said, you guys, I'm your host, Griffin Aldrich. Alongside me, we got my great co-hosts. We got Andrew Quinn, David Caires, Tommy Martinotti, and Carl McDonald. Carl, I didn't mean to ruin your name, but David up there with the
It's no, you got it.
Do not bleep me. I'm undefeated. You cannot bleep me for that.
well, you guys, we're back, and I have to tell you guys, and I think it was who did the podcast last week. I forget, you guys. I know it's episode 82, so go check that out after. Oh, we got Tommy and Carl. You guys, we thought the Celtics were gonna do so good this week. I think Tommy almost went 4-0. And I think we did.
I said 3-1.
Yeah, you said 3-1, but you were almost giving them the 4-0, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was close.
But I
think I didn't.
What? We went 1-3. That was rough week, you guys. But you guys know the initial thoughts, so let's go ahead and talk about the week. Andrew, we'll start off with you, go to David, Tommy, and Carl, and back to myself. What are your thoughts about this previous week and the Celtics play as of recently?
Yeah, 1-3, definitely not ideal, especially playing teams that we should have. Obviously, the Spurs, that's a tough game. Watching them defensively just kind of disrupt the Celtics' offensive rhythm, making it really hard on them. That was a tough game to get. So, and then losing to the Pacers, obviously, with the absence of Brown. We discussed it last night. You want to have Brown just because you don't have Brown doesn't mean you should be losing that game, especially with the Pacers still not having guys. They didn't have Benedict Mathurin, a key piece to their roster, someone I'm fairly high about. But overall, disappointing week, obviously, but I think the way the Celtics have been playing as of late, it's okay. It happens. This is just there's ebbs and flows throughout the season. You can't ask for them to be perfect, considering they're playing with house money at the moment. So this is just a tough week, but I expect them to bounce back and continue to play at a high level.
A legal screen.
Is that all you got, David?
A legal screen.
Well, wait. You must have a little more, right?
A legal screen. No, on a serious note, we'll talk more about the Celtics letting the refs get to them over the last couple of losses. I mean, Andrew, you touched on it. The Spurs game is a tough one. You knew coming into it. I mean, obviously, it's tough to lose to a team by 5 that you think is going to be there towards the end of the season. Has already proven that they can be a contender potentially by the end of the season. So it was going to be an uphill battle, and I mean, you can consider it maybe a moral victory, a game like that we were able to hang with the Spurs for that long. But I know no one on the Celtics side of the coin in that specific matchup is going to be considering that a moral victory. I mean, they're all competitors. They look at it very black and white. It's either you win or you lose. And, obviously the Denver game last week hurts to lose that one with Jokic, but obviously, that was a tough one as well. I mean, we went into it in depth last night, specifically with this Pacers game. That's easily the one that's the most frustrating. I mean, just to sum that up again, my thoughts still remain the same almost 24 hours after the result of that one. We should not be losing a game to an 8-win team. Yes, there's a bit of controversy, which again we'll get into at the end with, the 2 words of the hour, illegal screen, potentially on Derek White, or there was an illegal screen on Derek White at the end. But these games are not decided by just the referees. We got to execute better. And I definitely have some thoughts on us taking on the Celtics, calling out the refs a lot lately, but we just got to play better. But, you know, any team at any point in the season, it's very rare unless you're the 2016 Golden State Warriors, the 1996 Bulls, that you are just able to dominate from start to finish. Obviously, the Warriors did not dominate from start to finish that season. They didn't get the job done. So my point in saying this is that not every week in an NBA season or in a sports season is going to be crystal clear. So it's a little bump in the road, but we don't want it to turn into a pothole.
Yeah, definitely, frustrating week. The Celtics playing a few teams that were shorthanded, like the Nuggets and the Pacers. I think, like David already mentioned, the Pacers game was definitely the most frustrating, even though obviously Brown was out. I think they're probably trying to get him a little healthier before this final stretch of the season and not trying to wear him down too much before, this playoff and final regular season run come up here shortly. But I think, the way that game went, only allowing 98 points to the Pacers, you're expecting the Celtics to win that game. They only scored 40 points in that second half and really didn't get any offensive rhythm going, it felt like. Without Jaylen Brown being in there, you kind of saw that inconsistency on the offensive end, which doesn't surprise me too much considering, the level of basketball he's played this season. Obviously an MVP caliber year for him so far, but against, a struggling Pacers team, that's the one this week that definitely stands out. And I think, we all kind of collectively agree on that. I think the Spurs game, personally, I think the Spurs could win the West and be in the finals this year. Wembanyama is going to be a problem in this league for many, many years if he can stay healthy. And I think they have the perfect pieces that complement him. De'Aaron Fox, one of the most underrated guards in our league, in my opinion. And then you have a young guy in Stephon Castle, who's a rising star. It feels like he's just going to get better as the years goes on. And then they got guys like Keldon Johnson off the bench that provide sparks for them. So the Spurs game, we saw a lot of fight from the Celtics, just couldn't get it done in the final 2 to 3 minutes of that game. But just the Pacers game was frustrating for me to watch because it felt like in that first half their defensive intensity was going to be good enough to get them that win. Just in that second half, I already said it, but just the offensive inconsistency, not able to hit threes, weren't getting easy looks in the paint. So you want to see guys like Derek White and Pritchard kind of step up in those moments when our best player is out. But I don't think Celtics fans should be too worried about this past week. I think this team is shown already that they're capable of exceeding expectations, and I think they'll catch a rhythm. Right, hopefully starting with Miami next game. But I'm not too worried about this past week, and I think they'll bounce back fine.
And yeah, I'm pretty much going to second that for Tommy, what he said. Pretty much, we went through pretty down week, and this has been the worst week we've dealt with since like the beginning of the season. I feel like we can definitely manage, through the issues that we currently have by just fixing upon them. Like I said in the recap for the Pacers game, the main problem we had was closing out the game and taking shots that we really didn't need to take, especially, rushing those shots. So definitely, losing to the Pacers was, the worst thing to happen this week. The Spurs, honestly, when it comes to a team like that, I could maybe accept just because, not even maybe accept, I can accept it only because, they're really coming up as, that team potentially coming out of the West. They beat OKC, 3 times in a row. So that's absolutely incredible. And, their future is going to be very exciting, but also the Celtics too, because, you go through these 3, I'd say major losses, but not major to the point where we have to throw everything into the fire and, panic. I'm sure we're going to be fine. I'm sure, no pun intended, we're going to rebound better and, figure ourselves out and go ahead and win some more games. And hopefully that starts this upcoming Thursday.
Yeah, and I want to agree with all of you guys. I think this week was a rough week for the Boston Celtics. I'm not going to lie. We've been seeing them just exceeding expectations. And I think we've even gone to the fact that we're like, all right, this team is talented enough, especially like given the fact that Jason Tatum could potentially make a return this season, that this Celtics team could potentially make it to the finals as we're talking the East is weak, So we've been so high on the Celtics, and now it feels like, we're not really back to reality, because I think we're still a very solid team, and I think as of right now we're still in third place, correct? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I'm not concerned about them. Like, I think their play as of recently hasn't been the best, but this is the question. This is the topic that we all got on. And it's, what is our thoughts about the Celtics calling out the refs over the last couple of games? Like, because, and they do it on losses, because again, you're going to have bad officiating. It's just how it is. And, I want to go after Tommy and Andrew. You guys play college basketball. How many you guys have seen basketball all the time? Officiating is never fair. It never is. You're always going to have bad refs. Do you guys? All right. I want you guys to answer this question first, you and Tommy, because I bet you guys have some stories.
I think we're going to come at it from two different angles.
All right. Let's hear it then. Let's hear it.
No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's important, obviously, to have a good rapport with the refs. And at times when you're in a game and you place your focus on what the refs are doing to you and what they're not giving you for calls, it starts to become a hindrance, because you're focusing on things that you can't control, and that becomes a problem. But I also think there's also an importance of holding refs accountable and making sure they're doing their job, and they're human as well, and they make mistakes. And if you see a mistake and a ref doesn't have an ego, and you could point something out and say, hey, this is unfair, and really bring up a good reason for a ref to consider changing his ways, I think that's important. And also, Jaylen Brown did give this a media attention along with Joe Mazzulla, right? I mean, him saying illegal screen this past game, the whole world knows about it. I was watching the Pat McAfee show. They were laughing, joking about it, right? I mean, this has become a big media grab, or people are really grabbing onto it, right? So refs are going to see that. It's like going to Chipotle and holding a camera in front of them and making them put a little extra trees. It actually might make a difference with these refs. So it's worth a shot, in my opinion. And as we know, we have not been happy with the refs. So it's all right. It's all right.
Valid look at that, Andrew. But Tommy, I want to hear your stories, because you got some.
Yeah, I mean, as a player, and Jaylen Brown and Joe Mazzulla are obviously both huge competitors, and as a player, I definitely had a few moments where I regret some things that I said to refs in the moment. It's just in the heat of the moment, I think your emotions are so high in the flow of a game. All you want to do is win. You want to do the best for yourself and your teammates and the fans. The Celtics case, but I think Jaylen Brown is just trying to send a message to officials. Did he do it the best way possible? We could argue that. Probably not, but $35,000 to Jaylen Brown is equal to a few pennies for all of us. So I don't think he knew the fine was coming, and before he stated what he said in that interview after the game, he knew the fine was coming, but. I don't really have too big of an issue with it, to be honest. I am also a certified official in the state of Maine now, so I am kind of getting into this refereeing world as well. And, that's part of your job as a referee. Like, you're going to get shit from fans. You're going to get shit from parents, coaches. It's all part of the gig. And, everyone makes mistakes. Refs aren't perfect. And so it goes both ways. I mean, there's going to be missed calls, and there's going to be games in the future where fans and players feel like the refs lost them the game. But there's always points where players can look back and look at themselves in the mirror and say, well, if this and this didn't happen, then we could have won the game. And it's not always the refs' fault either. It's even in that Pacers game, in the Spurs game, the Celtics get a few more offensive or defensive rebounds, a few less turnovers, create a few more turnovers. You're not relying on the refs to help you out at the end of the games, and same for the Indiana game. So I understand it from both perspectives, as a ref and as a player. There's every player makes mistakes. It's a competitive game. Everyone's a competitor out there, and Brown wants to win games. He knows how important each game is for this team. And same with Missoula. He doesn't, he's not happy with losing to a shorthanded Indiana team either. So I don't have a huge issue with any of it. I think they're trying to send a message to the league and say, hey, it feels like we're getting not as many calls as these other guys, and so that's kind of it from my perspective.
Well, Tommy, we wish you the best of luck as a ref, because I even from my experience, and Tommy, you could elaborate more on your situations. I don't know if we can on here, but I would love to.
Yeah, so I don't know if Quinn remembers it. I think it was his freshman year, my sophomore year. We were playing up at UMaine Augusta.
Oh, I remember that.
Second half just started, and I remember our big man at the time was going to set me a flare screen, something the Celtics actually use a lot in their offense.
So much.
And the ref called an illegal screen on him, and he just went ballistic on the refs. Instantly got back-to-back texts, got thrown out of the game. And at the time, he was kind of our oldest guy on the team that I kind of looked up to. And as I walked past the ref, I kind of said under my breath, "That's soft as shit," and he teed me up for it. And my coach instantly subbed me out of the game. I walked to the end of the bench, instantly regretted it, obviously, and he just reamed me out. Basically, I didn't play for the rest of the second half. We ended up losing by like 2 points. So obviously, after the game, obviously, I totally took all responsibility for that loss because I put our team in a bad position. And then it was my junior year. Fast forward a year, we were playing our rivals, Central Maine Community College, at home in a very intense game, back and forth, wire to wire, all game long. And we ended up going on a little run to get an extended lead. And a particular player on Central Maine had a habit of talking a lot of shit to me and other teammates of mine. And in this particular instance, he made a three he hit a three, and he said something to my teammate, and I saw him, and I know the kind of player he is, so I knew it was coming, and he got a tech for it. So as he gets the technical foul, the ref's walking to the score table to report it, and I walk by him, and I'm like clapping, and I say something to him, not knowing the ref heard me, and the ref didn't hear me, but he knew I said something, so I got teed up for that. But me and my buddy Chuck kind of covered it up for the coaching staff, saying that I didn't say anything, so I didn't get in trouble for that one. But yeah, I've had heat of the moment mistakes that I've made as a player, so I kind of understand it when players do it. I think it's annoying when guys like Luka are constantly complaining to the refs. I think even Tatum, watching Tatum, I think I watch the game, I'm like, all right, Tatum, like just get back on defense, man. Like, yeah, they missed the call. Just you don't need to complain to the refs after every play, but it happens. Players get frustrated, referees make mistakes. But those are kind of my two stories that stick out of me opening my mouth when I shouldn't have, and probably crossing the line and paying for it. So
I got a good example.
It ain't our ball. It's our ball, ain't it? It's our ball. Hey, it's our ball.
But also, I think, is there any? I mean, maybe this could, because David and Carl hasn't had a chance to speak on this, and maybe we can use this as a way to kind of continue the conversation. I think it's important if Jaylen Brown doesn't talk a lot about refs, right? I feel like he stays out of that conversation. On the court, he sticks to himself majority of the time. Yes, he does engage with refs and has cordial conversations, but if he's bringing it to the media and saying something, does that not mean, in maybe your opinion, that it holds more weight? And then on the flip side, or another example too, like, does he have? We don't got to get in the freedom of speech conversation, but does he kind of have a right to have that to have that discussion? He's part of the league. He's working every day with these refs. Doesn't he have a chance to speak out and say it in professional manner about what's going wrong?
Yeah, and
I think yes, but I don't think he said it in a professional manner. I mean, he
Oh, I
said
didn't
like
okay.
you know what I mean. Like I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
yeah, he should have a chance to speak his mind, but in a professional manner. I mean, saying he's sick of this shit isn't the most professional way to go about the officiating. So I think that's kind
True.
of where
I didn't
the
catch
fine
that.
came into play. But yeah, I think I think players should be given a little leeway about the officiating, and I think as well, David and Carl, I want your thoughts on this too, and Griffin, you as well. I think sometimes, or I don't know, like a schedule that they can do this, but I think in all sports, the media should also be able to talk to the officials so we can hear from the official
Mhm.
side, so they can kind of be transparent with the fans, and that's kind of what I think too. I think that should be added into all sports in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So I will say that a lot of people don't know this, but the NFL has access, has the chief of the officiating staff talk to the media after games. There's a reporter that's nominated from both teams in the game. So if the Patriots and Jets are playing, all the reporters together will nominate one of them. It's called the pool reporter to talk to the officials after the game. You really don't hear about it unless there was like a controversial call. Like the first time I even knew that this was a thing was 3 years ago when the Patriots played the Vikings on Thanksgiving, and there was a really bad call in that game where, long story short, Hunter Henry should have had a touchdown and it got reversed, and we lost that game by like 3 points, I'm pretty sure. And it came out after the game. They were asking Belichick at the time when he was still our coach about that call. And he said, I have nothing to say about the refs. I'm not going to risk getting fined. Why don't you guys talk to the pool reporter who just talked to the referees right after the game ended? And then the referee had a whole transcript of talking to whoever the designated reporter was. I think a lot of this is, and I'm 100% in agreement with that, where I think the referees should be made available to the media after games. But I think the union would have to agree with that. And that's like a whole nother thing. Like the referees union would have to agree to that. And I honestly think it's one of to compare this to another different sport as well with the MLB. The MLB, not until a few years ago, had their referees mic'd up when a play would be challenged in baseball, and the reason why is because the umpires. I'm not even joking when I'm saying this. The umpires were afraid to address the crowd. That's why they didn't want to be mic'd up at all. They did not want to have to address the crowd. They were just nervous. So I don't know if that's something with the referees here in the NBA, but I'm 100% for them at least just having to address the media for sure. I don't really know if anything's going to change. I mean, if all your stars and your players that are most marketed in the NBA start to come forward consistently, like Jaylen Brown's doing and trashing the refs, so like if you see, I don't know, Jokic, it'd be ironic, but if SGA comes forward, Luka Doncic comes forward, like if all these stars start to come forward and say something, I think change can happen. But right now, if we're just getting these, remarks every once in a while, and not once in a while, but occasionally, it really has to be consistently for change to happen, I think. And I mean, my crazy world is ending scenario would be a team like protesting during the game and just like a whole team walking off the court because they're protesting a call from the ref. Like then something would definitely change. But like I think for things to change with the refereeing and the officiating, it just has to be consistent. Complaining something as wild as a protest, personally. Um, I don't mind, anyone can say whatever they want after games. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't really like the way Missoula handled it last night, personally, as the leader of the team. And just, you know, with the way that game went, I thought that he could have been a lot more mature about that and realizing that that one call at the end, which obviously, as we know today, with the 5 minute, the final 2 minute report coming out, that was an illegal screen. So that was a bad call. Anyone who was watching that game, there were plenty of opportunities before that play at the end with Siakam for the Celtics to easily win that game. especially if we're holding the Pacers under 100 points. So, that kind of stuff pisses me off from Missoula. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think he botches the media availability sometimes, and he did that last night. As the leader of the team, you really shouldn't be making excuses like that. And I think 9 times out of 10, he does a good job with that. His first year, he was awful with the media, but like the last couple of years, he's gotten a lot better. But I don't really like that he does stuff like that. But the players, I mean, it's a different situation with the players. They have a much different relationship with the players, with the referees compared to the coaches and the referees. So speak your mind with that. If you want to fess up the money, fess up the money. It's your money, your salaries. But I didn't like the way Joe Mazzulla went about that. But maybe something will come of this. I doubt it personally, but I have seen a lot more national headlines about the Celtics going after the refs lately, and a lot of people online supporting it. But that's my 2 cents on the officiating. I feel like we could do like a whole 5-hour podcast on officiating specifically, but I don't expect things to change. But it is an interesting discourse, and it is unfortunate we have to keep talking about it every single season. But it's a part of sports.
Yeah. What are your
I
thoughts?
also
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just real quick too. I also think yes, they had that 5-minute report, illegal screen, but for a guy like Joe, who's very like hard-headed, I'm gonna move on to the next play. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna just keep my eyes forward and try to win games. He likes the physicality. He's a intense coach, and to kind of nitpick on a tiny little play that could have gone both ways. Yes, illegal screen was called, but to be honest, I mean it's late game in the game, like that's a tough call to really call. So it's one of those things with Mazzulla where it's a little contradictory of where he stands at times with how he wants the game to be played, coached, and just his from a philosophy standpoint.
Yeah. Where are your thoughts on it though, Carl?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll admit I'm one of those people who really get on the referees because I see a lot of crazy calls. We have seen a lot of crazy calls as fans. For example, you look back to even, with the Jason Tatum, which I do agree, Tommy, sometimes, or not even sometimes, a lot of times Jason Tatum does complain to the referees when he should be, getting back on defense. But, getting called for a tech for clapping. Then you got Anthony Davis putting his shoe on, getting a tech for that. Tim Duncan sitting on the bench, not bothering anybody, laughing, being thrown out of the game. So it's definitely instances like that should at least maybe get the NBA talking and seeing about, holding refs accountable on, calls like that, ridiculous calls that are just out of nowhere. And that definitely doesn't make any sense. But, as David mentioned, it has to be, a consistent thing for there to actually be change. You know what I mean? So, yeah, pretty much the whole idea of protesting in one way or another. It could be a whole team, or better yet, the majority of the league. So it could be the players, it could be the coaches, the staff, so on and so forth. So for, change to actually come about, like David said, there has to be more action. And pretty much it does start with, them being vocal, like what Jaylen Brown was doing and Joe Mazzulla and even Trae Young and others, that came before and definitely after those guys who will, complain about what the refs are doing, and that's fine. But also on the other hand, too, and again, I'll admit, I wasn't particularly fair with some of the referees, too. I could imagine being in their shoes, not being able to see everything. And then when somebody catches something that I missed and I messed that up, it's like, how could I really, manage or really go on from that? You know what I mean? So definitely they deserve, a little bit of grace because they're not going to catch every single thing that happens. They have so much to do from, analyzing what is going on in the game. If they actually got the call right, they have to review it, so on and so forth. And then coaches, challenging calls could complicate things even more. So definitely a situation of, if we want change to happen, there has to be more, put into it. It can't just be the, verbal side of it. And, I love JB too, but definitely not the best way of going at it as well. I don't give an AF about the whole, fine thing. That's definitely not the best way of going about it, especially when you're leading the team on the court. And Joe Mazzulla, I saw somebody in the comments of one of the videos saying that he was talking like a 6-year-old. Definitely, of course, not the best look, coming from coming from the guy, leading the team off of the court as well. So definitely coaches, or not coaches, referees should be held more accountable, especially when, you're making, crazy calls. But, in instances like this, it happens and you just have to move on. You have to keep playing a game, try to win the game, and not, compromise your team's chances of winning that game. Case in point, Luka in the finals, game 3, he fouled out, and that really exposed him as a leader for this team. It was bad. You know what I mean? What was it? It was a blocking foul, if I'm not mistaken. And he's yelling at his bench to call the challenge, to call the effing challenge. It's just like, what are you doing? This is the finals. What? You got to keep your composure, and now you're panicking like this. You lost, and you're now 0-3. You're not. There's no way of coming back from that series. I mean, obviously they weren't going to come back either way. I'm not bragging, but you know. But the point is, yeah, you can't really harp on one thing like that because again, it destroys, everything you're building up towards. So yeah, pretty much kind of 50-50 on the situation. On one hand, definitely do more to hold refs accountable, but at the same time, we can't harp on small calls like that.
Yeah. And I feel like we could go. Oh, Andrew, do you have something else to say on this?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with you, Carl. There's better ways to go about asking for calls. I mean, look at that whole debacle with LA when Pat Bev grabbed the camera and LeBron dropped to his knees and started pleading.
That was an all-time
for help. I mean, that's all time. That's comedy. That's comedy, but it's too much. And you can't expect the ref to give you a call when you're acting a fool, basically.
No, I agree.
Really funny fact about that situation is that referee was investigated for being a undercover Celtics fan, Eric Lewis.
No way.
He had a burner account that liked all the him and his family wearing Celtics jerseys playoff games later that season, and he ended up retiring as the NBA was investigating him. He just got reinstated to officiate G League games.
No way.
So that stuff's corrupt. I mean, yeah, that stuff is corrupt. I mean, the players have a leg to stand on with that stuff. But I was watching that game live. That was almost 3 years ago to this day, I'm pretty sure. It happened in January 2023. That game was hilarious, and we won. And the look on Tatum's face after he LeBron's arm, and he knew he got away with murder, which is great. That was an all-time temper tantrum from LeBron as well.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! His face. Hold on. And he was like,
It's actually hilarious. So it's like you can't make that shit up.
He would not let it go. Yeah.
I have to say,
dumb.
This is one of the podcasts. You see, I just can't get over this. Pat, this is why there's a problem, you guys. This is why there's officiating problems. But
hey, shout out to that ref though for being a Celtics fan.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen the Netflix documentary about some Timmy Donahue or something like that? Has anyone seen that documentary?
The gambling scandal?
Yeah.
I wish. I heard a lot about that, though.
You guys got to look into that because, honestly, after I watched that, and he had ties to Scott Foster, who obviously we all know still officiates, and I guess they were really close when Donahue was officiating games. And if anyone has a chance, watch a documentary, and it kind of gives you a weird feeling about, what a lot of people don't know, what may be going on behind the scenes of these games. So anyone has time and wants something to watch on Netflix, and it's only about an hour or two, take a look and watch that documentary, because it opens your eyes, and it's a little eerie to think about, what could be going on behind closed doors.
Tommy, it starts with you. You're the new generation. It's time.
Hey,
We're
I'm
gonna
still
see
at
you running the
I can't do
NBA.
I can't do much at the JV level, but we'll see.
No,
I'm
but
trying to
it
make
starts
my
at the
way up.
JV level and makes
That's
you.
our
I
homework.
mean,
That's our homework.
yeah, it's
Oh.
with you, Tommy. The future's with you.
The future's with you. You guys, we could go on and on about refs all night. I feel like, like I think us Celtics fans, like I've had so many memories. I'm swearing at my TV about refs. Like, I think that's all it is. But it's time for the part that you guys are waiting here for. The trade rumors, and there's one specific trade rumor, and Carl, I'm gonna let you break this one down. So let's talk about it. Here is the tweet.
All right. So the Boston Celtics would love to trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. according to NBA Central right here. Multiple sources have said that whispers are coming in, have been coming in for a while now, and if Boston does go ahead with this trade, we could see them giving up nice talent such as Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez. And yeah, this trade, oh Lord, if it goes through, I'm just gonna say I don't want this trade to happen. If this goes through, just because I love Jordan Walsh, I love Hugo Gonzalez, and I feel like we would be giving up a lot. Yeah, Jaren Jackson Jr. is great, former Defensive Player of the Year. Definitely, Memphis has a lot of hope and have a lot of great things to say about him. They see him as a guy who could lead them or do great things with them. But at the same time, it's just like those are guys who are developing. Gonzalez and Walsh, who have done great things for us this far, and it's like, what if we give them up and now they're doing greater things over in Memphis? And we potentially have ourselves probably going through it with Jackson, who again can be a good player, but you're gonna have to give up a lot just to even consider thinking about getting him. So
I agree. I think, and this is going to be the topic. So we'll go in order again. We'll go Andrew, David, Tommy, Carl again. But I want to start it off too. And well said, Carl, with that. That's my only issue. I love Jaren Jackson Jr., and I've been such a big fan of him. Even being an opposing fan of the Boston Celtics, obviously. I have loved seeing Jaren Jackson rumored to be going to the Celtics. However, I do not like what they would have to give up for him because, Jordan Walsh, that could be one where it's like, all right, potentially I could go with that one. But again, Jordan Walsh has been progressing and progressing, and you don't know the value that Jordan Walsh could potentially be. And Hugo Gonzalez, all right, yeah, he could be a bust. Who knows? But as of right now, he's showing significant signs of him being great only at 19 years old. So it's like, it's always a risk when you're trading the younger players because you don't know what they can become. I mean, look at Denny Avdia, for example, with the Washington Wizards. I mean, the Washington Wizards had no faith in him, and they traded him to the Trailblazers thinking this is going to be a win for them. And the Trailblazers now have a upcoming superstar, I could even say, but there could also be ones like AJ Johnson, who the Milwaukee Bucks traded to the Wizards last year. And all Wizards fans were like, oh my gosh, we have an upcoming all-star. And I think he's been in the G League all year this year for the Capital City Go-Go. But again, he's young, so that's one that could develop more. But there's been so many scenarios where you trade young talent and you're getting in a player that you're like, all right, I could win this trade, but it doesn't happen. And the upside of that player is a lot different. So me personally, I liked, and we posted something on Instagram earlier about who we want for trades. So go check that out. And I like this. If you could somehow, and again, Josh Minott is a guy who I still think very highly of, and I like him for the Boston Celtics. But if you could somehow finesse Josh Minott in there with Sam Hauser and Anthony Simons, maybe I'm a little more lenient to that one because, again, you're going to have to give up Sam Hauser and you're going to have to give up Anthony Simons to match up the salary. But if you could somehow give Minot in there, I'm a little less concerned about that opposed to a Jordan Walsh or a Ugo Gonzalez. But again, I would love to have Jaren Jackson Jr. on the team, but Gonzalez and Walsh, I'm not sure if I would give up. So that's my 2 cents. But what about you, Andrew? And we'll go all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll keep it semi-short. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is obviously a really good talent. He can stretch the floor and knock shots behind the arc, and just overall a young talent that has continues to have more to prove in this league, and a piece that would be very nice to have. I will say, if those are the guys that we are thinking about trading, whether it be Simons, Walsh, Hugo, I think those guys are very important to our team. Obviously, Simons, I think less so, but right now he's playing very serviceable, being very helpful off the bench, really heating up in important times. I think, and I can't speak on as much, and I think David has more of a well-rounded knowledge on this, but I do think contractual, just it's a lot of money, Jaren Jackson, to bring him on. And I think we are still kind of in this position where we are trying to stay underneath as of right now. I mean, that was our goal this season, to stay under that tier to avoid getting taxed and all that cap space. So I don't know if that trade is worth it. But obviously, then you look on the flip side, and we're a team that's winning. We're a team that has potential to come out of the East and make it to the finals. Is this a team that you just go all in and say, hey, screw it, we're going to go try to win a championship? I don't know. It's one of those trades that's tough, but I think there is other big men out there that you could get for a little less money and give up not as much and give up less players and still have a similar success.
It's an interesting dilemma, because we all know, especially coming into the season, and it's remained true, that the Celtics need to figure out what to do long term at the center position. Like, Namias Keita has been great, in my opinion, this season, given the promotion he's gotten in his role. This has easily been the best season of his career, but we'd all be lying if we said he can be a starting center on a championship team, with this Celtics window these next 2 3 years when Tatum comes back. I mean, maybe at some point in his career he can be a starting center on a championship team, but I think he's better suited long term as a bench piece. The interesting question that the Celtics need to answer, in my opinion, is what are they looking to get out of the center position, to get an upgrade, or what are they looking to upgrade at the center position? Is it looking to go back to this 5-out play that we mastered with Porzingis, which obviously won us the championship, where you have 5 guys on the floor all at the same time who are threats from deep, but you sacrifice rebounding with that? So you're getting offense, but you still would have the issue with rebounding. Jaren Jackson Jr. fits this profile where he's a guy who can knock down 1 or 2 threes a game and he'll shoot like 4 or 5. So he has to be guarded and respected at the 3-point line. And that would just get us back to these old days, or I mean, they're not really old days. We were doing it just last year when we still had Porzingis, of being able to play 5-out and have the paint wide open and have so much more flexibility offensively. But the problem would still remain if we get Jaren Jackson Jr. of rebounding, because Jaren Jackson Jr. is a 6'10" center, power forward center, who's only averaging 5 or 6 rebounds a game. That's a huge issue for me. And I mean, obviously that's been a huge issue for the Celtics this season. It's just corralling rebounds, especially at key moments. The flip side of it is, do we try and upgrade at the center position for a known guy that can get a lot of rebounds? I mean, couple names that come to mind that were included in the Instagram post that you put out, Griffin, were Daniel Gafford, and another name that comes to mind is Zubac. I mean, if we were talking a couple weeks ago about acquiring Zubac, I think that could have been a lot more realistic, but the Clippers have won 10 of their last 12 games. They're fighting to get back into the playoff picture. So are they going to be as willing to trade Zubac? He's averaging 10, 12 rebounds a game the last couple of seasons. Obviously, you're not going to get that outside shooting with him, but you get that rim protection that you need on the other end of the center spectrum. So it's an interesting dilemma. I would personally be fine going for it with Jaren Jackson Jr., but contractually, as you were hinting to, Andrew, I have it pulled up here. He's making $48 million a year through the 2029, 2030 season. So I think that honestly just rules it out, because we'd have to give up Simons and Hauser at a minimum. So that's $37 million. We probably would still have to give up even more just to literally make it contractually and financially work. So how much deeper are we willing to, dive into our depth just to go all out for a center? I mean, we probably have to trade Pritchard as well. And Pritchard's the best contract in the NBA, in my opinion, given that he just won Sixth Man of the Year and he's developing into a great starter. He's only making like 7.5. So that probably gets you very, very close. And then you include Ugo or Walsh. So contractually, but the amount of talent that we would have given up for just one player after all the talent we just lost in the summer, that's where I don't think it's worth it. So I think it's the right player to think of to bring to the team, because we just went through this with Porzingis. We just won a championship with this style of having 5 guys that can be threats, 5-out basketball, make it happen. But I don't think Jaren Jackson can be that guy. And I think we would give up way too much in a trade to get him. But that could be the type of profile. I think that should be the type of profile of the player the Celtics should be looking to go after.
Yeah, I think $48 million for a player like Jaren Jackson is extremely overpriced. And we're talking about upgrading our center position, but truthfully, Jaren Jackson isn't even a true center, in my opinion. He's more of a power forward. Not a great rebounder at all for his size. From the games that I've watched with Memphis, it seems like in big games, he's also always getting into foul trouble. And for the price that we're going to have to pay to get him, it just doesn't make sense. We get rid of Simons, Hauser, let's say Hugo, and I'm seeing 2 first-round picks. So we're giving a haul for a guy that is going to make a boatload of money, and we're not sure how he's going to fit in with this team. And also, if we do trade for Jaren Jackson Jr., where is our guard depth going to be? Because if we get rid of Simons, he's our main scorer off the bench and gives us that guard depth that we need in certain games to get wins. And if we don't have Simons, we have Pritchard, White, and who is our guard off the bench at that point? Are we tuning in Derek White at our point guard position, moving Jalen Brown up to our 2 guard, Jordan Walsh at our, what will the rotation look like? So for me, this trade doesn't make sense. I don't know why we're not looking at our guy, the Time Lord Robert Williams. I think that would be something I'm interested in. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. He's only 28 years old. Yes, he has health concerns. We all know that. I just think, again, maybe I'm biased, but I think you'd have to pay a lot less for a guy like Robert Williams. And, he brings similar but different things that Keita brings to your team. More of a lob threat, can block shots, isn't going to stretch the floor. He can guard pretty well on the perimeter. It's just obviously his health is the main thing that concerns me. But for me, Jaren Jackson Jr., his asking price is way too high for me. And I think there are plenty of other centers that we can look at that can bring in, that can just maybe move the needle a little bit without having to haul half of our bench out and our future first round picks. So for me, this trade really makes no sense. And I just don't see Jaren Jackson being a guy that, we confidently say, yes, this is the move that makes us get out of the East this year and we can win a championship now. Because truthfully, I don't really think it moves the needle all too much. We have to give up that much in return.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Pretty much, yeah, when you're talking about trading for Jaren Jackson Jr., in our case, it's almost similar to what the Orlando Magic did with Desmond Bane. They gave up a lot just to get him. And, they're not doing too bad, but at the same time, having to give up all that just to get him is, definitely not the best move. So it would be even worse in our case. And yeah, you would, in our case, we need, a true center. And actually, too, there was rumors of us also looking into Robert Williams III. I wouldn't mind having him back either. Definitely the only flaw, being his health concerns. But other than that, a lot of fans I've heard too prior saying that he is pretty similar to Keita. It's just that one's older than the other. So yeah, pretty much if you were to, trade for a center, either a Nick Claxton like, Griffin has been suggesting for a while, I don't think you would have to give up too much for that. And, somebody who could be a true center, somebody who could average double doubles, or Robert Williams because he's familiar with the team, he's familiar with us. Maybe you just figure out a way to, I guess, put him into that starting lineup, and maybe even have him coming off of the bench on some nights. So definitely, we don't want to give up a whole lot, but we do need some type of center. And thankfully, we're kind of in agreement that, when it comes to Jaren Jackson Jr., although a great player, is definitely not one that we should have as, our main center at this time.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot, I've heard a lot about Day'Ron Sharp, I've heard obviously as Tommy and everyone has mentioned, the Time Lord, Claxton, Gafford. Like again, we've talked about this constantly about like and I think, Tommy and Carl and I think last week I thought we pretty much said, if the Celtics go through trade deadline and don't get a big man, I wouldn't be concerned, like, and I don't think you guys would either. I think that's what we came to the consensus of. But again, there's guys like Io DeSumo as you could get, there's plenty of guys that the Celtics can go after to have a successful, trade deadline. And I think the main candidates that the Celtics would prefer to move off of is obviously Chris Boucher being one of them. Xavier Tillman could potentially be one of them. There's some guys that, the Celtics could move off of. But, and, Tommy, the only thing that scares me with Robert Williams is, again, the injuries. So I personally would go after a guy. If the Celtics are seriously considering a big man, I think you're going to give up a lot for Zubac. So I like either Claxton or Gafford. I think those are cheap guys. And if you do have to end up giving up Anthony Simons, I think Io DeSumo is a guy that you completely pursue after that, because I think he's a guy who could give you some good guard depth. And I know I've talked very highly about, Ron Harper Jr., but again, would you feel comfortable giving him the keys after that? I don't know, because I think he's too young. So I think Io DeSumo would be a guy you really would want to pursue after that. But do you guys have any other thoughts on that? Because we have another trade that we should dive into. But does anyone have anything else to add on to that?
No, actually, no. All good. I had something, but I'll bring it up later.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
Well, I want to give credit, obviously, because this is not my take, but I heard it. Celtics Today by Chat. They're on YouTube, and then Nets Daily has a little writing on this. Said potentially not Claxton on the Nets, but Day'Ron Sharp.
Yeah,
a little cheaper. That's been in discussion right now. But I feel like Day'Ron Sharp has made 17 career starts, playing 24 minutes per game. He's averaged 11, 9, and 2, including 4 offensive rebounds and content. So he can move well. I want to credit Nets Daily on that. But Day'Ron Sharp, a guy that for less money right now, 12.5, I believe, per year. So you're not paying nearly as much as a guy like Jaren Jackson and even Claxton. And I don't know. I think it's something to think about. Like, you have Tillman on the bench, but you're not utilizing Tillman. I still think maybe you continue to play big man by committee, right? And just feed the hot hand and just give many different looks at the big man and just continue. Like say you do get to the finals and you have Keita start, and then you throw in Garza and give a different look. And then you throw in Day'Ron Sharp and give a different look. Like, if you just have continuously just throwing bodies at these big men that are getting majority of the minutes and kind of just tire them out, I think that could be a way that we attack this, rather than paying a lot for a center, giving up a lot as well, and then jeopardizing our future potentially, because you have to think about this. I think Yes, Tatum, there's potential for him to come back. Yes, this team is playing very, very well considering their expectations. They're playing on house money, to be honest, at this moment in time. But you have to be realistic, and you have to make sure that you still set yourself up for a future, because without, I mean, you have to be realistic.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, I I agree with that. And again, I've been knocking on the door of even giving Amari Williams more time. And that might just be me, but I think that's an option too. But
You and me both, Griffin.
oh
For
yeah,
sure.
And if you're gonna do that, you better do it soon, because you
soon
need to give him time to
before
continue
Tatum
to
comes back.
understand the system and understand
Exactly.
what's going on. If he does prove himself come playoff time, I agree with you though. I think
He's a
there's
guy
no
that
reason to not give him a couple minutes here and there and see what he can do.
you have to. You have to, because that's a guy who, I was thinking to myself all last night, Amari Williams is literally on the bench. Throw him in for 5 minutes, see what he does. Just see what he does. You've given that opportunity to Hugo Gonzalez. Give it to another guy. But I want to talk about this, and let's all go around again. We'll start off with Andrew, go all the way through. But about Anthony Simons, because again, and Tommy mentioned this, but I already talked about, going for Io DeSumo. DeSumo? I think it's DeSumo. Yeah, DeSumo, right? I think that's how you say his last name, but I think that's the guy you kind of go after if you lose out on Anthony Simons and trade him. But you look at this, Nick Claxton, even probably Daniel Gafford, Zubac, or Jaren Jackson Jr., you're gonna have to give up Anthony Simons in that deal. And again, we've been talking very highly of Anthony Simons because he's been incredible. But I want to know your thoughts. Would you guys prefer to just keep Anthony Simons? Because I personally would. And if you say he stays with the Celtics long term and we look to extend him, what would you feel comfortable giving him for a contract? Because I think he's around 27 million right now. So what would you feel comfortable giving him, and or would you rather trade him? Where are your thoughts though, Andrew?
I don't know. I think Simons is playing well with the system. I think he's starting to get into his groove and fill in the stat sheet and knock down shots. My concern is that Simons, when Tatum comes back, that's potentially even more minutes taken away from him. And a guy like Simons is a volume scorer. He needs the ball in his hands a lot of the time. He needs offenses ran through him, in my opinion. I think he can knock down shots off the ball. I think he can be a spot up shooter, but realistically, he's a scorer who needs the ball in his hands a lot of the time. And he's been able to figure it out. He's been able to play that way and do his thing. I just don't know how realistic that is when you have Tatum come back, who's ball dominant, who's going to get more minutes. Obviously, he's going to be probably on minute restriction when he first comes back, but that's going to pass up, right? And so how does he fit into this team when Tatum comes back? Another issue, like you said, he's on that 27 mil contract, and I still think he personally thinks he's still a talented player who's a key player to any team success, right? So I don't think he's going to ask for less. I don't think you're going to pay him for less. And so is he a guy that we're going to get back, or is he just going to walk? Or do we move him right now and find a way to bring on a piece that could stay with us for a little longer and really help us in our future? So there's a lot of questions that raise in me, and I'm a little skeptical on if he is 100% all in Celtics wise.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes for me. It goes back to the point that Tommy was making earlier about our guard depth, because it almost feels like if we lose Simons, I mean, what are we going to do with our guard situation off the bench? That's just my way of saying it. Almost feels like we have no choice but to keep Simons. And yeah, he has been playing a lot better lately. Really living up to the Infermo nickname, where he just catches on fire and just scores a crazy amount in a short period of time. But the only reason I'd be willing to move off of him is just like a D'Angelo Russell Warriors situation where you trade, maybe you somewhat overpay on a trade for a piece coming from another team, but it's a system fit, which is what the Warriors did with D'Angelo Russell, get Andrew Wiggins back in 2020. And obviously, 2 years later, hate to bring this up, but Wiggins locked up Tatum in the finals, and that was a big reason why they were able to win the championship that year. So, my only way of living with a Simon's trade would be to trade for a centerpiece, a literal centerpiece, and maybe going back to it being a Dayron Sharp who's only making 12 million. You know, you save 15 million there, and you get a center, so that's a win-win. Or a Gafford, you know, he's only making 18 million, so you save 9 million there. But you're really screwing yourself for your backcourt depth. So that's just the dilemma if you trade Simons. And really, Simons, let's be honest, Simons isn't your true point guard. Like, he hasn't really shown me anything that he can facilitate an offense. He's kind of just a catch and shoot guy. Like, if he has to, I was having this conversation with a friend last night over dinner. If he has to make a decision with the ball and dribble with the ball, I think that's where his game starts to struggle a little bit. He's at his best where he's just catching and shooting or creating shots for himself and very like snap call decisions. So that would, it's not, it's just more so having that guard depth, which I think we need to keep with Simons on the team. So, I could keep flipping and flopping with this. I have been all season so far in terms of whether we should keep Simons or not. And my answer could change between now and a month from now, which is when the NBA trade deadline is. But I think just for the sheer point of having depth and having guard depth, which obviously has taken a huge hit for the Celtics these last few years, I think we need to keep Simons. But we don't know if this is something he's willing to do long term. Does he want to try and be a starter somewhere else again? I mean, that's another thing as well. So these are conversations I'm sure the Celtics are having with Simons' camp. These are things we have to monitor. And if he doesn't want to do this long term, or if we don't get the sense that he wants to do this long term, then yeah, you have to get something for him and you'll have to trade him. But in terms of a contract I'd be willing to give him, definitely not 27 million to keep coming off the bench. I mean, personally, if he's still going to be the sixth man off the bench, 15 million is what I would do. But he's probably going to ask for somewhere around 20 million. I think that's probably his next contract. Annual value is around 20 million. So we save 7 million there. And that's just another dilemma. I mean, you're paying someone 20 million to come off the bench. That's a hard sell. And that's a decent part of the cap that's getting eaten up by a guy coming off the bench who is going to be getting less minutes, especially when one of the best players in the league comes back for our team, hopefully in the next month or two. So I don't know. I think just out of sheer necessity, we do have to keep him, but I'm still open to the idea of moving him, but only for a big man.
I think David pretty much said mostly what I was going to say. I think, $27 million for a guy that's coming off the bench and sometimes playing it consistently is definitely too high. 20 million a year is definitely the most I would give Anthony Simons if he's, bought into the system and we see him continue to improve defensively and catch a rhythm offensively. Part of me does think when Tatum comes back, if it is this year, I almost think it'll make it easier for Simons on the court. I think it'll allow him to, create more offense, and I think Tatum can create easier shots for Simons and vice versa. So I think, especially when it comes to playoff time, I think Simons can really make an impact and pretty much win the Celtics some close games. So I'm not on the trade Simons side of things unless it was for like a Daniel Gafford. We say Simons and Sam Hauser and maybe like a Luka Garza, for example. And then if that was the case, I do think the Celtics have to get a guard in return from another team. Griffin said Ayu Dosunmu. I think that's a good name that could be brought up. A completely different play style than Simons, not a ball dominant guy, more of a defensive guard. So if we were to get rid of Simons for a guy like Gafford, which I would be, you know, more in favor of than a guy like Jaren Jackson, just because it's not as much of an asking price, and Gafford doesn't, eat up as much contract money as Jaren Jackson does. But if we were to get rid of Simons, there has to be a way that Brad Stevens gets another guard before the trade deadline. So I'd prefer to keep Simons. However, if we were to trade him for a guy like a Gafford or a name like that, I wouldn't be opposed to it if we were able to get another guard in return from another trade.
Yeah, you know what I would like if we could find a way with Gafford and with the Mavs, that Brandon Williams. I love Brandon Williams. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's got Kyrie-esque handles and finishing around the rim. He's 2.3 mil. It's like if you could find a way to kind of get him on your team and invest in him, I don't know, with the Mavs along with Gafford, and you give up a couple guys, especially because right now, obviously the Mavs are they're in trade talks. They're in rebuild mode with Davis once again getting injured. It's like they're willing to break it up, and if you can potentially grab a guy and just snag him and just see what he does. I don't know. I mean, I think he's a fun player to watch. Maybe I don't know how efficient he is, but there's potential. There's potential there.
Yeah. What are your thoughts though, Carl?
Yeah, pretty much gonna have to agree with David and Tommy. On one hand, wouldn't mind giving up Simons just because it's not even guaranteed that he's gonna be there that long. Plus, although we're doing well, we're still kind of in dire need of that center. And, as evident as today and for the past few weeks to months now, we have been, in trade rumors with picking up a center. But, on that other hand, too, I wouldn't mind keeping him. He's finally adjusted to his role on the Celtics, coming off of the bench and again being great for us offensively, and has developed more too as he's doing even better, on the defensive end as well. So definitely I could go either or personally, mainly on the center side, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind keeping him.
Yeah. I think, I've been under the influence, and I think, Tommy, Carl, and I talked about this last week too, how
Under the influence of what?
Hold on.
Podcasting while under the influence.
What a host.
Listen,
What a host.
I've been under the influence that the Celtics should keep Anthony Simons, But I agree with what you said, Andrew. I agree. I don't see this be a fit for the Celtics after this year. So I kind of just did a trade in Trade Machine because I wanted to see how this one looked. And I just want to hear your guys' thoughts. How would you like trading Simons, Hauser, and Boucher to the Bulls for Vucevic, Io DeSumo, and Dylan Terry, and they could just reroute him? What would be your guys' thoughts on something like that? Because then you get a center, who again, Vucevic is an expiring contract as well, so that kind of matches the same thing with Simons, and Io DeSumo, but that's a person who I think I would feel a lot more comfortable extending. But I'm under the impression, I agree, where I don't see Simons really wanting to come back, especially with the Celtics, because I don't think he's very happy here. And I agree. I think he's more of I don't want to say this. I think he likes winning and likes being part of a winning organization, but I think he is more, in the sense of a Trae Young player where he likes the ball in his hands, and that's just his play. That's just his playing style, It's not necessarily he's that player, but that's how he dominates, and that's how he's going to make the most money. But do you guys?
I will say, I do think Simons, though, I will say, is starting to find, like I said it before, he seems to smiling on the bench.
Yeah, he's having a lot more
being picked up by guys. I think he's slowly finding his place within the Celtics organization, and so I'm with you. I agree. I don't know long term if this is a fit for Simons, but I will say in the moment, I don't want to jump to conclusions on where Simons is at, because to be honest, I think he is starting to heat up and feel more comfortable with where he's at.
And I agree with that. And that's the only part where, if he's comfortable, and I think he needs to have this conversation with the organization. And I think, before trade deadline, I think they should be under the thoughts of, hey, we like what you're doing here and we like what role you're in. Do you like this? And do you appreciate this? And do you want to come back with the organization? And if not, I think that's where they should reroute him. If he's like, all right, I kind of see myself being more of a player that wants to score, but I've been, making to your accommodations, then send him elsewhere. But if he's a player that's like, all right, I'm comfortable what I'm doing and I want to win, keep him and extend him. But do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
I say keep him, win a championship, and then just prove to him why, and then just show him the Celtics way.
Valid.
And he doesn't want to leave.
Valid.
That's it.
Winning cures all.
Exactly.
I agree. But that trade you just proposed, Griffin, definitely wouldn't be opposed to that. I think Vucevic kind of fits that stretch big role. A little bit older, but he, is a solid rebounder and can definitely score in bunches. And you're getting that guard also in return. So I wouldn't be completely opposed to that. But if, we could keep Simons, win a championship, I think it'd be a little bit harder for him to, decline a little less money and stay with a winning team coming off of a championship than, jumping ship to go to a worse team for a little more money. So we'll see.
Yeah. Carl, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, pretty much same thoughts. Simons, I wouldn't mind keeping him. Definitely, is fitting in a little bit better than he did at the beginning of the season. And that trade that you had proposed, definitely, I would probably jump the gun. I'd probably say yes to that trade, just because again, Vucevic is great. The Sumu, you guys have really been, mainly Tommy and Griffin have been really showing that hey, that could be somebody that's very valuable coming off of the bench, especially helping with that guard depth. So definitely, I would go ahead and do that trade. But again, if Simons is available, he wants to stay, and the incentive is winning a championship, why not?
I agree with that. And, I would love to keep Anthony Simons, but I think it's more so the conversations he needs to have with the organization as a whole. We can talk all day long about wanting to keep Anthony Simons, but if he is, and he's looked like he's had a lot of fun playing with the Boston Celtics, but if he would rather play elsewhere, that's up to him. But do you guys have any other thoughts to say on that before we head into the main report? I'm trying to pull up the graphic of the trade I just did. So I'll try to get that up for you guys. But if someone could pull up really quick while I'm doing this, if someone doesn't mind pulling up the main Celtics schedule as of recently, they're 3-3 after Winter Showcase, and here we are with the main report. But Maine Celtics have been playing hot, and if someone could look that up and give us that information. But I have to say, I went to the game with my girlfriend last week, I think it was, against the Stars, and we went on the first game of a back-to-back, and they ended up winning that game. And I want to give a little shout out to Jalen Bridges, who completely heated up for the for the Maine Celtics, had 21 points at halftime. And on top of that, a couple nights before, he hit a game winner against the Boom. So have to give Jalen Bridges some credit. And he's a guy to look out for getting a two-way contract, as he's been dominating recently, and he is deserving of a two-way contract. So that's the little scoop from within the main organization. But does anyone have it up and can break that down for us?
Yeah, I got some stuff. So right now, their Maine Celtics are on a four-game win streak, and they just beat Salt Lake City last Friday, 107-102. And what do you know? Amari Williams, once again, 22 points, 9 rebounds, playing very, very well, and 3 assists on 6 for 9 shooting. And he's lighting it up down there, and he's efficient. He seems to be really, really fitting in well with what they have down there, or up there, I should say. But he's just playing really, really well. Hayden Gray added 13 and 10, and then Ron Harper, Kendall Brown scored 13. What if we have a point guard right down in the G League, Ron Harper?
That's what I've been kind of hitting on. I think Ron Harper, it would be a great option for the Boston Celtics, but my only and I think that's a guy they should give more of an opportunity, because when I went, obviously it was garbage time, but when I went to the Celtics game against the Grizzlies, he got put in the end and had 6 points in like 3 minutes. So, I mean, I wouldn't be mad about that, and I think that's really what you got this guy for, because he's proved enough in the G League this year. Don't you guys agree? I mean, he's proved enough. So, I think it's now
Definitely.
just
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think he's proven enough, but I also will say, like, I think he's obviously talented, but I'm not sure he's necessarily going to live up to what we would want, especially on a playoff team at this moment in time. Definitely a good guy out of roster. Great guy. I'd love to see success from him, but at this moment in time, probably not what we're looking for at the moment.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else though on the main Celtics?
I think Ron Harper Jr. could be definitely a serviceable backup point guard in a year or two. Give him a year, the rest of this year to develop in Maine and kind of see what happens with him in the offseason. I said this last week. I think the biggest jump that he's going to have to make is defensively. Just the athletes and the players that you're going to face from the G League to the NBA are just it's a wide skill gap. I think the offensive talent is there for him. We've seen that on display this year when he has played in Maine. So
Yeah,
I don't
he's
think there's
averaging
any question.
26.9 points right now.
Yeah,
which
so I
is
mean, you
impressive.
can't ask for much more than that. I just think defensively is where he's going to have to get acclimated the most at the NBA level. But we'll see, and I'm definitely hoping that he'll be a part of this Celtics rotation in years to come.
Yeah. David or Carl, do you guys have anything else on the main Celtics?
Let's get this win streak to at least 6-7 games.
Well, let's
So,
beat the 9-game win streak. Let's get up to 10. Let's keep it going.
41.
Oh wait, Andrew. Oh well, David, you didn't do the little. So we haven't had any beeps for David today. Gotta give him.
No, I think he's winning, and I think he's the volume. It's the volume that it's hard to keep up with.
You're right.
But Griffin, I have one for you.
What?
Operating under
Unacceptable.
drinking and podcasting.
I'm not drinking. I'm under the influence that we should keep Anthony.
Griffin, follow the finger. No, we got it. He's twitching. Got him.
But as
breath will be green out of the breathalyzer.
But as promised, you guys, here's the little trade I kind of constructed. I just did it right there. I don't really have enough time to play around with it, so maybe I do something better. This is the first time I even did this, but you see the trade matchup well. So I mean, get under the salary cap a little bit more too with that negative 5.6 million. So that would help a little bit more.
Kill 2 birds with one stone. Get the stretch 5 and then save some money.
And I'm really under the fact that Dylan Terry, I would reroute him personally, because I don't know how well he would fit the organization well. So that's a player I would kind of reroute. But with that being said, you guys, we're gonna head into the road ahead. So this is what we got for the road ahead. We have Celtics versus Heat this Thursday. So everyone, make sure to come tune into the recaps, which we do live after the game as well. So Thursday got the Heat. Saturday, the Celtics take on the Atlanta Hawks. And then Monday, the Celtics face the Detroit Pistons. And finally, on next Wednesday, the Boston Celtics face the Indiana Pacers once again. But let's go around again in the same way we've been going. Andrew, what do you have the Celtics being in these 4 games?
Let's see. Well, I'm hopeful that the Celtics, after these 2 losses, bounce back. So I'm gonna say they get the Heat. Pistons, I think that's a tougher game. Obviously, we dropped one to them last game. Think we'll lose the Pistons. We'll get the Nets. and we'll get the Hawks. So, oh wait, am I not looking at the right schedule?
All right, we got Pacers, Pistons,
Bro, we ain't
Hawks.
playing no damn Nets.
All right, we got Heat, Hawks, Pistons, Pacers.
Heat, Hawks, Pistons, Pacers. All right, we're gonna get the Heat. We're gonna get the Hawks. We're gonna lose to Detroit. We're gonna get Indy. So we're gonna go 3-1.
3-1. What do you got, David?
I'm gonna say 2-2. So we should go 3-1, but I think baby steps here. Shout out Dave Ramsey. We're gonna do Dave Ramsey baby steps here, and we're gonna go from 1-3 to 2-2. We always seem to do well when our backs are on the line for some reason going down in Miami. So I think we're gonna win on Thursday in Miami. The Hawks, I think, are gonna beat us. I think the Pistons are also gonna beat us, but I think we'll be able to rebound by this time next week against the Pacers at home and get that game and get a revenge win against the Pacers. We'll have bigger problems, obviously, if we lose to the Pacers again. That's going to draw a red flag the next time we're talking. We potentially talk if that were to happen, but I think we'll go 2-2.
Awesome.
4-0. You hear that shit? 4-0 this week. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just being optimistic. I think Brown's going to come back. I think this team's going to have a little spark after this tough week. We always play well against Miami. I think Atlanta will be the sneakiest game of the week. They've been playing pretty well since that Trae Young trade. Jalen Johnson's one of the, rising stars, I think, that's breaking out this year. I think Detroit will be a tough one, but I'd like to see them get that game and kind of jump up a game closer to that 1 seed. And I think they will bounce back and beat the Pacers handily at home by hopefully 10 or 15. But I want to be optimistic today, and I'm gonna say 4-0, and we're gonna be happy next week on the pod.
Love that, Tommy. What do we got, Carl?
I hope I'm wrong, Tommy. I want to say we're gonna go 3-1, and that's the thing. I don't know which team we would lose to, either the Hawks or Detroit. Detroit right now, obviously best team coming out of the East as of right now, and then you have the Hawks. I feel like we've always kind of lost to that team, even before that trade that just happened. So I feel like we either lose to Detroit or the Hawks. Other than that, I do see us taking care of business in Miami on Thursday and doing so against Indiana on Tuesday, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, correct? On Tuesday.
Indiana's Wednesday, sorry.
Oh, Wednesday. Okay, thanks.
How many times have you played these guys?
I know.
This has got to be like the fourth and final time this regular season, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be because I'm sick and tired of playing these guys.
I know.
Sorry,
Not even
Carter,
playoffs
interrupt.
yet. No, you're good. You're good. No, that's why I had to ask, because that's how many times it's been. But yeah, it's either gonna be we lose to the Hawks or we lose to Detroit.
Do you have a team though? Do you have a team pinpointed? If you had
You know what? I'll say we'll lose to Detroit.
if I'm being honest, I'm going the same route David's going. I would love for Tommy. I hope that microphone brings some good luck today.
I hope so.
Listen, but and I know I've been so optimistic as of recently, but I'm going 2-2, just because I believe we beat the Heat on Thursday. That's a tough one that could bite us. I know that because the Heat are a tough team whenever we face them, but I think we'll get it done against the Heat. I do think the Hawks will beat us on Saturday just because they've been playing well. That's a tough matchup. And then again, Pistons, I think they've been playing well. They'll get us. But I think we're going to have a blowout game against the Pacers. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think we're going to play around. And maybe we'll see Amari Williams get some minutes against the Pacers too. So
Maybe he'll get like 6 or 7 minutes.
Andrew. There is no appeal on that one, David. There is no appeal on that one.
Yeah, I'll accept the fine with that one, to quote Jaylen Brown.
But do you guys have any final thoughts though? Before we wrap it up?
Illegal screen.
illegal screen. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching.
It's our ball, ain't it? It's our ball.
Hold on. Can we give you a LeBron James compilation really quick?
Oh my god.
Oh, it gets even better. It's gonna get even better. You guys see it, but all right, one last time. Gotta give it to LeBron. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications to be notified every time we upload. And again, you guys, tune in Thursday as the Celtics take on the Heat, and go check out episode 82 if you haven't already. But we will see you guys with the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Peace, guys.
See you.
Take care.
Peace.